The topic of this video is going to be how to double your chances of getting immigration status in Canada. So if you're an applicant and you have a spouse, then you can utilize that spouse in order to double your chances of getting immigration status in Canada. So when you apply to immigrate to Canada, whether you're trying to immigrate here temporarily as a temporary foreign worker or as a permanent resident under, let's say, a skilled worker category, you have to qualify under a certain category and you have to meet the criteria of that particular category. And so as we mentioned in an earlier video, basically, it makes it a lot easier to qualify under a particular category if you have a job offer from a company in Canada that is basically permitted to hire international workers. And so there's a limited number of these companies, and they tend to be in certain geographic regions or within certain kind of domains or industries. Now, if you're applying for immigration status in Canada, Canadian immigration law basically allows you, if you have a spouse, to allow for that spouse to kind of come along. So if you apply for, let's say, a temporary work permit and you get that work permit, then your spouse can kind of come along with you on an open work permit. The same basically holds true if you're applying for PR status, for permanent resident status. So if you're applying under, let's say, express entry, and you're the applicant and you succeed as the applicant, then your spouse can basically come along with you to Canada. So basically, if you're applying for immigration status in Canada and you succeed, then your spouse will essentially automatically be able to succeed along with you. So given that, how can we use this or these rules to our advantage in such a way where you can essentially double the chances of getting immigration status in Canada? Since only one of you and your spouse basically needs to qualify, it's better not to assume that you have one applicant and then allow for that applicant to try to apply and succeed kind of to the exclusion of the other applicant. The better thing to do, the better tactic to take in order to basically double your chances of getting immigration status in Canada is to get each of you and your spouse to, let's say, look for a job separately, and then you're basically doubling the chances that at least one of you will get a job, and then whichever one gets the job, that person should be the primary applicant, and it's that person who should apply for immigration status in Canada. And if that person gets immigration status in Canada, then the spouse can basically tag along and will automatically get immigration status in Canada as well. Okay, so the same dynamic basically holds true within the context of temporary foreign workers. So if you and your spouse want to come to Canada as temporary foreign workers, then basically only one of you needs to find a job in order to qualify under the TFW program. And if one of you qualifies, then the spouse of the qualified applicant will get an open work permit. An open work permit basically allows for the spouse to work for any employer, regardless of whether or not they've basically gotten authorization to hire international workers or not. So the bottom line here is that you shouldn't assume that if there's two of you, you and your spouse, that one of you should kind of by default apply as the primary applicant to the exclusion of the other. Some people assume that the person with the better profession or the higher paying profession should be the primary applicant. You shouldn't assume that, because if each of you tries to get a job, then it might be the person with the lower level profession or the kind of lower paying profession that gets the job, and then the other person can automatically tag along. And so by doing that, you are basically doubling your chances of getting into Canada, because if one of you qualifies, then both of you can qualify. And that also sets you up for getting PR status later on under the Canadian Experience class. So we hope you found this video useful. If you are looking for any other information, we encourage you to visit Uniivaa.com.